Hownikan.
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 You're listening to Hownikan Podcast, highlighting Citizen Potawatomi Nation issues, members, and more. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. Just search Hownikan Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Paige Willett. During today's episode, we're hearing from a tribal member who recently received a seat on a White House Environmental Council, taking a trip through the community garden, and revisiting the opening of the CPN Eagle Aviary. Citizen Potawatomi Nation member Kyle White dedicates his career as an academic to environmental justice, both as a professor and advocate. As the George Willis Pack Professor of Environment and Sustainability at the University of Michigan, he teaches courses focusing on Indigenous peoples' rights regarding land and environmental sovereignty.
I really want to see an energy transition where tribes, where people of color, where other underserved communities emerge as leaders in the new energy system, as providers of energy, as people that are in the highest levels of decision making about what our energy system should look like and the values that it aspires to.
In early March, the Council for Environmental Quality invited him to join the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council, a 26-person group designed to present people from across the United States to provide plans and ideas on fighting climate change alongside environmental justice.
The types of recommendations that are going to come out of the council, represent the knowledge of people who have seen everything. They've seen what fails. They've seen things that have worked. They've been reflecting really hard on how to make policy change that will actually impact communities at the grassroots level.
In late January, President Joe Biden signed Executive Order 14008, or Justice 40, which laid out the first steps of an expansive initiative to combat climate change in the United States. It also outlined a committee to ensure 40% of those investments benefit communities affected by environmental justice. White and the rest of the council presented plans on the organization and distribution of those investments in mid-May.
I immediately thought, okay, it's time to really get to further work and to use the knowledge that I have, the skill sets that I have to take advantage of this, potential opportunity for improving the tools and the resources and the policies that are available to Indigenous people, but also many other, communities of color and underserved communities for protecting their environments, their cultures, their health, their ways of life.
The Council also presented improvements in the government's use of data across departments and agencies when determining the effects of environmentally hazardous practices on the most affected populations.
They don't quite give us the whole picture that we need, and certainly tribes and Indigenous people, oftentimes their environmental justice issues aren't able to be portrayed within those tools. And so one of the charges of the council is to find ways to improve those tools for identifying communities that are being affected by environmental racism.
As part of the Environmental Council, White focuses on improvements to Executive Order 12898, signed by President Clinton in 1994, the federal actions to address environmental justice in minority populations and low-income populations. The order's goals include using environmental justice data to create policies that better serve underrepresented populations. White sees the potential to serve tribes and their sovereignty better.
I think tribes are critical because we have those governing powers, which means that we can actually pursue solutions to environmental issues that can model what it means to be a clean economy, what it means to have a good cultural relationship with the land. And so I think that those governing powers that tribes have are critical to modeling and demonstrating what environmental justice looks like in practice.
He also believes the implications of environmental damage expand beyond land rights and economic woes.
And I think the executive order also doesn't do enough to really talk about how Cultural activities and lifeways can also be at risk, and often for Métis tribes, those are the key risks that are operative within, a situation where there's a mine or a pipeline or something else.
On January 20th, President Biden also signed an executive order revoking the permit to build Phase 4 of the Keystone XL pipeline, a point of contention for many tribes and environmental activists since it was commissioned in 2010. In March, attorneys general from 21 states sued to overturn the revocation, stating congressional desire to participate in determining the pipeline's fate. However, White remains diligent in his push for tribal sovereignty in environmental justice cases and the use of Native American land.
It's important to note that, 3 or 4 tribes, their tribal governments have said that they don't want anything to do with that pipeline, and that they've engaged in a lawsuit, that they are challenging whether they were adequately consulted. And so I think it's important to listen to those tribes that are, directly implicated and who are putting their foots down.
He also noted that the Keystone XL is not the first oil pipeline met with backlash from Native nations and environmentalists.
And in all of these cases, you see a similar pattern that, tribal consultation is treated as a ornamental process. It's not treated as a process where the consultative meetings themselves could actually change the outcome of what happens.
Partnership and tribal considerations remain at the center of White's work. He finds inspiration in long-standing relationships between tribal nations and hopes they can provide solutions to environmental problems.
We can do good to improve the policies and to change the laws and to engage in lawsuits. At the same time that resistance occurs, we also need to be building a true sense of what a government-to-government relationship is.
His work on the White House Council and future actions of the Biden-Harris administration remain to be seen. Find Kyle White's University of Michigan faculty profile and publications at cpn.news/White. That's WHYTE. This spring brought plenty of rain and mild temperatures to Oklahoma. It was cooler than usual, and the plants in CPN's community garden loved it. Community garden assistant Kaya Deerenwater took me on a trip through what he's been working on and provided some tips for the springtime.
So we're up here at the community garden in our raised bed area. We have about 20 raised beds that were put together by the youth a few years back, and they're all pretty much planted now. We have some tomatoes, 4 beds of tomatoes up here in the front. These tomatoes are called Annie's Sugar Gem tomatoes, and they're little one-bite cherry tomatoes, and they're an indeterminate variety, so they will grow and grow and grow all season long until the frost comes, which is my favorite type of tomato because it is a continuous bounty of fruits. And then over here in the next row in, we have some Anishinaabe purple potatoes. I think they're some Minnesota variety, but they are purple flesh and purple skin, really high nutrient content compared to like a Yukon or a russet. So they got lots of vitamin B's in there and antioxidants. So that's why I like growing this variety. And mixed in with the potatoes is a companion plant, chamomile, and that's I think it's a German chamomile, so it's used for teas. It's a really high oil content for teas, and it's a great kind of relaxant stress reliever tea. Next to that is a row or a bed of Nin Sema, our Nishnabe tobacco. I think it's Nicotiana rustica is the Latin name. This is seed that came from, I think, G-Juck Foundation up in Michigan. So, and it's actually doing fairly well down here. A lot of plants that are from our homelands don't do so well in the hot Oklahoma summers. But this year it it's actually performing pretty well. So they say if your leaves are about as big as the palm of your hand, they're ready. They could be harvested for medicine, for offerings and stuff. And this tobacco that we have here is not like cigarette tobacco. It's way, 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 way stronger, and you could definitely hurt yourself if you tried to cure it and smoke it. So if you are growing tobacco, just be aware our ceremonial tobacco is not like cigarette tobacco. It'll grow to 2 to 3 feet, I think is how tall it could get if it's happy in fully watered and fully fertilized. Tobacco is one of those plants where it's a hungry plant. You could throw as much fertilizer as possible. When I am growing it in the greenhouse before the frost is over, I give it twice as much nutrients as I do all the other plants, and it still grows well. Let's see, walking down. Oh, we have one remaining bed of strawberries that the deer haven't eaten. And, oh look! There's one little strawberry that's demen, that is ripe and ready to eat. Strawberries are demen, in the language, is the heartberry. That's what it's called in the Potawatomi language. And it is the first berry in spring to ripen, so it's always welcomed as a sign of the bounty of summer to come. And it's also shaped a little bit like a heart, and it's good for your heart. It's not only us that love strawberries. The animals, especially the deer, love strawberries, but they eat the tops, the greens off all of the berries, and then the skunks, possums, and raccoons love the ripe berries, so they're coming in and munching the actual fruit. So it's been a challenge. I'm feeding our non-human relatives up here at the garden. So this back bed over here in the middle of the garden is it's about 60 feet by 30 feet, I think, and there's 12 rows of wabskiabuk, or sage, white sage. It's our traditional prairie sage that I am growing a trial run of offering the sage bundles to tribal members who request them. And because the California sage population, which is what you find in the online marketplaces like Crazy Crow or gift shops or powwows, that sage, it only grows a little tiny section in California, and its population is taking a pretty big hit because of the amount of people that want to use it. So this traditional sage that we have, the Potawatomi sage, will hopefully relieve some of that the burden, the pressure on that wild California sage population. We'll see how the harvest goes in August, probably July or August. The last few rainstorms have dumped a couple inches of rain, and then in between have been some nice warm periods. It has grown, probably doubled in size in the last 2 to 3 weeks, and I guess it's almost a foot tall now. So if it keeps going like this, we're gonna be in business. And so I've planted it really thick in here because each plant theoretically could take up a couple feet of space, and I have them spaced every 2 feet. So so we're over here in the northwest bed of the garden, and it's kind of soggy. You can hear the squishy soil. And that's actually not so great for a lot of crops because they don't like the squishy, soggy soil. But taking advantage of this area with elderberry was what I decided to do, because we have always get a lot of requests for elderberry workshops and elderberry teachings, and it's kind of hard to find a lot of elderberry growing wild around here. Having access to it right here at the garden is great, and taking advantage of this kind of soggy area where you normally wouldn't get a lot of good crop growth is also good. So I have 4 rows of elderberry, and we'll see how they do. This is their first year. And elderberry is another one of those traditional Potawatomi plants that's pretty widespread. I mean, there's elderberries that grow from coast to coast on Turtle Island, all the way down into Mexico, all the way up past the Medicine Line into Canada. So, yeah. The medicinal properties of elderberry are, it's a superhero in that regard, because it is an antiviral. Most plants are antibacterial, but elderberry is one of those that have, even Western science, is proven to be an antiviral. I can then harvest the berries, use them for workshops for tribal members, as well as harvest the berries and, dry the seed and use them to propagate more elderberries for local residents and for tribal members that are in Oklahoma. And, up north in like our homelands in Michigan or Illinois or Wisconsin, it probably does like a little bit drier areas just because of the amount of rainfall they get compared to the amount of rainfall we get down here. And then we have a row of mountain mint, which is a great, it's like a native tarragon. And it's great in dressings, as seasoning in roasts, in soups. It's good just plain by itself as a tea. It's a mint, so it's got those antibacterial, antimicrobial properties, but it's also got kind of a sweeter tarragon flavor to it. So yeah, I like making a mountain mint vinaigrette, and it is delicious on salads.
Do you have some, spring, summer garden tips for people?
My spring tip would be gardening really starts out the previous fall. Whatever you're planning for spring or for summer, you need to prepare for the previous fall. Otherwise, you'll end up, missing things or making mistakes. And so the soil prep, the seed selection, the planning of your beds, take some thought about the placement of the plants, what crops grow together, what kind of successional planting are you going to do? Are you just growing in the spring? Are you just growing in the summer? Do you want a fall garden? So if you're planning a spring garden, when 2 weeks before the last frost approximately is when I start doing my bed prep, weeding and tilling, if that's what you do, or I do a lot of no-till or minimal disturbance. So I put a lot of compost over my beds, I refill the topsoil, I put a lot of mulch on things, on paths, checking your tools, checking your water system, getting everything ready. Gardening takes a lot of planning and forethought if you want to do well and to succeed. And the intention in gardening is a lot for me. Like, what is your intention? What is your purpose? What are your goals for your garden? Another tip is keep a notebook. And if you don't keep a notebook, at least, most people have smartphones, and on their smartphone you can make a note. And I have a running note. Every time I think of something, if I see something that's going well or not going well, I write it down. And then at the end of the season, I go back through those notes and be like, oh, yeah, I got to change this. I got to do this for next season, all those kinds of things. One of the most important things to think about along with planning is your soil health. The nutrients in the soil are what is going to determine your success or failure. So making sure you have good soil, and if it's not good soil, finding a place where you can buy topsoil or amendments or fertilizers that create really good soil. What the plants grow in is almost more important than the plants themselves. Healthy soil makes healthy plants, and healthy plants feed healthy people. Kind of cliche, but whatever.
The CPN Community Garden is one of many projects from the CPN Cultural Heritage Center. Follow the CHC on Facebook at CPN Cultural Heritage or visit it online at potawatomiHeritage.com. We're looking back again at the Native American Speaks, a former radio show from Citizen Potawatomi Nation's Public Information Department and KGFF. It ran from 2006 to 2013 with host Michael Dodson, previous Public Information Department Director. In this clip, Dodson interviews CPN Eagle Aviary staff Jennifer Randell and Bree Denham. This clip is from July 2012, a week after the aviary opened. Next month marks the 9th anniversary.
Take us back to 2006, 2007. You ladies had good paying jobs in Chickasha. And what was the catalyst? How did Eagles enter your lives?
You know, we go about our everyday lives, and sometimes we don't even look up. And that's obviously what we were doing. We were going to work every day, and very suddenly we lost my mother, Sherry Randell. She lived with us, so it was very traumatic. On the heels of that, we were presented, our family, a beautiful golden eagle feather from our CPN tribe, a nation, and it was a great honor for us to receive that feather. Our mother had involvement in the tribe, and they honored her with that. Sometimes we don't choose our path, it chooses us. And in dealing with that grief, which was pretty overwhelming, we went on hiatus and went to every Eagle Watch that was possible for us to attend all over the state, if not even out of state, and tried to photograph eagles in the wild. We met Gary Sifter, which worked with the Iowa Aviary, and Victor Rubin.
Siftar is his last name, right?
Yes. And at that time, we realized that there need to be more of these facilities because I was unaware, as I'm sure most public are unaware of, that eagles have to be put to sleep if a rehabilitator cannot place them within 6 months to a year of them receiving them.
They have to have a permanent home. I mean, there's no other option. If there's not a placement for at the zoo or someone else needs an education bird, then there is no long-term placement options. I mean, there's no care facilities out there, and if you can't survive,
no eagle hospitals.
That's right. You can't survive in the wild, then it's unfortunately they have to be euthanized. And so when we found that out, it was incredibly disheartening that there's a situation where we need feathers, and the repository is what it is. We don't have any relationship.
It can take years.
Yes.
From application to actual receipt of feathers for ceremonial purposes, or for even longer for an entire eagle carcass.
But as much as that it takes so long, there's no relationship with the living bird. Yeah. And so that idea was just sparked in us when they said that. We couldn't wait for the program to be over to talk to these rehabbers and to think about, being able to come spend time with those birds and get a better understanding of them and why we revere them the way that we do. It was something that it had to be done. I mean,
we literally went right from the Eagle Watch in the vehicle on the way home on a Sunday and called our grandmother, Beverly Hughes, which you've mentioned. She knows our chairman very well. So on a Sunday evening, she called the chairman at home. I wasn't real happy with her doing that, but we don't tell our grandmothers what to do. So she called Rocky on a Sunday, and we were able to get an appointment with him the next week. So we literally, it was January 2008, met with the chairman and vice chairman, and I will tell you, and I would like for everyone to know this, they never told us no on this aviary. They said, let's find a way to do this. We had an hour-long presentation they set through, and I don't think I've ever been so nervous because we were ready for them to say no.
We actually had a bullet list,
bullet-pointed list,
a list of things. Okay, when they say no, this is what we do. We do this. We say no. This is why.
If this doesn't work, you guys need to get out there and make hundreds of thousands of dollars selling.
Exactly. And so, we pitched this to them, although there was nothing on that page when they said yes. We weren't really sure where to go from there, but that was a whole nother step. So through the grant process,
you sold them on the idea, or they heard the idea and liked it. There probably didn't need to be a lot of selling because the idea just is what it is, and it's so great. So,
right.
They could see what it would do for the tribe. And that was January of 2008, and it has taken 4.5 years.
Just pushing and telling us when we did get discouraged, just give it another day, day. And let me tell you, it was well worth the wait. And there's a lot of permitting and things that have to take place. So in hindsight, it didn't take that long. Really, it didn't.
You
No.
guys have sort of earned a doctorate in eagle, doctorate in raptor through this project. You didn't know a lot going in, as I understand it.
No.
And you now are becoming authorities on what the life of an eagle is like and how to deal particularly with those that need rehabbing. And you probably talk eagle already.
Well, I don't know if you would say that we're experts yet. I feel like we have a lifetime to learn.
Yeah.
But, it's amazing when you are passionate about something, how easy it is to learn. And whatever switch was flipped in us, it was undeniable. There was no going back. It was, we're going to work with eagles. Now, how do we figure out how to do it? And I think when you're that passionate about something, the learning just comes easily. I mean, it doesn't bother me to pick up a book. It doesn't bother me to call somebody and say, hey, I don't know this. I need to know.
What do you have? Describe the facility for me.
Well, I would say we're pretty proud of it.
You should be.
It's
gorgeous.
Thank you. It is, I can say, one of a kind. We, I believe, are the first tribally owned aviary to put cultural significance into the plan. And it also helped the birds. We have a 149-foot half circle, if you will. And this prevents the birds from having any hard corners or turns to make. They seem to be very comfortable there.
And you say also, because one end of the half circle is not visible from the other, if there are birds that want some privacy or want to be away from other birds out of line of sight, that's available to them.
Correct. And we also have designed that in the way that we can literally petition it off if we need to. But back to the half circle, that is representative of a prayer circle, our powwow grounds. You enter our viewing from the east. So that was all taken into consideration. And obviously, as the vice chairman and chairman completely were supportive and agree, we want people to understand the respect and how highly we hold these eagles. So it was real important for us to make this facility really top notch for these eagles.
That poor part of it is you can view inside from the outside because it is wire mesh. Very high quality mesh, but it's like this pop screen that I have in front of me in that you can see through it.
Yes, what we use is it's actually created for eagles. It's Top Right 3. Zoos use it. It's zoo approved, obviously Fish and Wildlife approved. And what it does is it gives you what we wanted, a closeness to these eagles where you feel like you are in their world and they're in your world. And that's really important to us. We've already had some tribal members come and share time with these eagles just for some healing and for some peace of mind. And that's what we wanted to accomplish.
We went through an awful lot of healing when we went on trips and went to the river and spent time with those eagles in the wintertime. We had some really profound experiences. It totally shifted our focus and it put us on the path to where we are today. And so we wanted to recreate that so that you could feel like you were at the river right there next to an eagle and share that space with that bird and the same air and not be just behind glass or not a zoo experience. We wanted that closeness to the birds, and it's really important.
In addition to this half circle we're talking about, you have a building that the front part of it is, and also an area for eagles that is open, and then in the middle between it and the half circle there is an enclosed area that is I'm assuming offices.
It's an office space. It doubles as a catch hall or just a space so that the birds don't get out when we open those doors. It also doubles as our exam space. We need to bring birds in and examine them, do any care or maintenance issues with the birds. We can do that in that space, but it also has 2 windows on each side so that you can view for indoors in the summertime when it's extremely hot or things like that. People can come in and look at the birds and not have to stress the birds out in the heat. So it gives us 2 different options for viewing, and that way it also allows us to give people their space too.
The 2 open areas, you've done an excellent job putting limbs and rocks and waterfalls and things like that in there, trying an excellent job at recreating an outdoor feeling for the birds to live in.
It's important because when these birds in captivity can live 30 to 50 years easily, and so we had to think about enrichment for them, something that would recreate a little bit of that outdoor space and bring that to them since they can't be out in the wild anymore.
I can't say how proud I am of what you 2 are doing, McGuetch, and just best of good fortune with everything you guys try at the aviary. This is a dream that chose you, and because you were so ready to become sponges and learn everything you could, I'm glad that it's the 2 of you that it chose.
You bet. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much. And I hate to keep using the same word, but it's so humbling for people to say those words to us, and we're very proud, but this is all about the eagle.
Since this aired, the aviary has improved significantly with a better environment for its residents. Jennifer and Bree are caring for more birds and have released 2 back into the wild with telemetry devices. Follow the Aviary online at cpn.news/aviary and on Facebook at CPN Eagle Aviary. Hownikan Podcast is produced and brought to you by Citizen Potawatomi Nation's Public Information Department. Our director is Jennifer Bell. Don't forget to subscribe to us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you find what you listen to. We're also on Facebook at Citizen Potawatomi Nation and on Twitter at C_P_N. Visit us on the web and find digital editions of the tribal newspaper at potawatomi.org. That's POTAWATOMI.org. Until next time, I'm Paige Willett. Miigwech Nikanek, Bamamina. Thank you, friends. See you later.